Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Critical Moves. Today, I am joined by Timothy
Hello, everyone. Good day.
and Joe,
Hey everybody, glad to be here.
and I'm your host, Jack. Let's start with Tim. Tim, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. It was just my birthday. I had a great celebration, and I'm feeling fantastic.
Yeah, happy late birthday, Tim.
I mean this like a compliment. You look like you just had a birthday.
But I know what you mean with that.
I don't feel like I need to say anything more.
And Joe, Mr. Looks over here, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. Doing great. We got some nice weather in my area. I'm just trying to soak it all in.
Yeah, I'm having fantastic weather around here, too. Yeah, nice, sunny, windy days here in America.
Yeah.
But we're here to talk about strategy games, and there's something that's always paired with strategy games. It's not that it's not something that doesn't exist in other game genres, but it's something we can kind of commonly refer back to a shared experience for people who play strategy games. And that's our ability to sit around the campfire with each other and tell our most memorable stories from the amazing sandboxes that we play every day. Sometimes you're playing a game and you choose the right empire or the right build, and sometimes you load in and the seed that they give you puts you into the best resource on the map or gives you some kind of like tactical advantage over other people. And then it ends up kind of snowballing together, so you just have like the best run of your life. Like you win by total domination, diplomacy, who knows. So both of you look like you have quite the repertoire of strategy stories under you. I want to jump over to Joe first. Do you have any memorable runs in a strategy game, or was there ever a moment where you kind of picked up the game and you were just like, oh my gosh, I got the luckiest start ever?
Yes, and I have a story I'm going to tell, but I have a story about a non-strategy game. I know it's a strategy podcast. I'm sorry, everybody. But I feel like this story is too tragic and wonderful not to share. Okay? So, like many people, I used to play an MMO game called World of Warcraft, right?
Hmm.
To my utter shame and pride, I guess, shameful pride, I was a part of a guild that did really well back in the Burning Crusade. Tim, you're too young to know what the Burning Crusade was, but
What? That's not true. I remember the release of World of Warcraft Classic. Hey, come on.
okay, all right.
Jack
Well,
is the young one here.
in the original Burning Crusade, I did a lot of raiding, and my guild was one of the top guilds on our server, probably the number 2 guild. I still remember this nonsense. And I was a rogue. I was one of our, 2 or 3 rogues, and we also had a fury warrior. And we had been farming Illidan for a while. He's a character. It's super nerd, I know. We had been farming him for a while, and he was known for having the most powerful swords, right? Super rare, super in demand, and they were really hard to come by. One dropped, and which again, guilds would kill him so many times, and one of these would never drop. We got one, and it was like our chat went completely silent while they decided what to do. And everybody knew they were deciding between me and this Fury Warrior what they were going to do. And after 15, 20 minutes, honestly, they decided to give it to me because it was deemed it's a better rogue weapon. And all my friends were excited for me, but the Fury Warrior was kind of an oddball. He was just kind of an oddball, like Warcraft players sometimes are. And he was silent for about an hour, and then he started talking about what it's like to be a ninja in our guild chat. And he proceeded to give us 15 minutes worth of the discipline needed to be a ninja and how much of his time it takes him. And then he quit our guild over not getting the Warglaive of Azzinoth, is what I think it was called. I proceeded to have tons of fun with that weapon and then quit playing WoW maybe 3 months later. But that is one of my most memorable video game stories. I promise I have a strategy one for my next one, but that is one of my most memorable video game stories, is getting one of the most rare pieces of equipment in the game. And then it basically led to the whole guild breaking up 6 months later. This guy started 15 minutes later, but the whole guild broke up 6 months later.
You know, it's crazy that you bring up the story, Joe, because my parents actually met on the Burning Crusade.
Oh, wow. Wow.
I could not, if you would have given me 100 guesses as to what the response to my story would be, someone saying my parents met at Burning Crusade would have never been one of them. That is so funny. So you talk to your parents, they're going to know. Not only are they going to know what I'm talking about, Jack, your parents are going to be pretty impressed with me. That's going to be my guess.
Yeah, I'm sure.
I was a very impressive, super nerdy rogue back in the day.
Yeah. Well, it's also April Fool's, and you guys acted like I didn't exist at the time. I was alive during the Burning Crusade, Joe.
I mean, I was calculating in my head, and it's
I didn't
not
even think about it.
You're not.
You guys are acting like I didn't even exist in 2007 when the Burning Crusade came out.
Yeah.
Is that when it came out?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I was calculating in my head.
18?
I was like, that doesn't.
That was fine with me. What a great April Fool's joke, Jackie.
Yeah, that was. You had me there for a while.
Usually I don't partake in April Fools, but yeah. I mean, I hear stories like that on World of Warcraft, but you definitely had a unique one there with the tangent that was so memorable for you. I mean, I've had moments. I think now the charm of that stuff is lost just a little bit because games like that are set up now so that people don't lose out on unique rewards in the same ways. Or like something I don't like is the uniqueness of an item is kind of lost now. Like unique weapons are not unique anymore. And so like I remember I want to say around like 2014, 2015 was like the last time I really saw stuff like that. Like it was around that time that things like Destiny were out, and it was like you go and you do like a 6-person raid and only one person gets a weapon, and because it has such a low drop chance, the developers didn't even bother balancing it, so it's like broken for the first week, and then everybody who uses it steamrolls the rest of the game, and then it's like people are selling accounts and stuff, and I don't ever hear stories like that as much anymore. I mean, I'm sure it happens on like EVE Online, but I don't know that they have anything unique going on.
That's the fun in games like that. I mean, I don't have time to play those types of things anymore. Even if I did, I wouldn't. But that's where the fun was, is going for something truly unique.
Yeah.
And like you said, I did. Me and my arena partner went and steamrolled a bunch of people in the WoW Gladiator system for maybe just a month or so. It was great.
And, you know, there are strategic aspects of World of Warcraft, but I want to hear from Tim, because Tim, I mean, he's the multiplayer strategy guy, so I'm sure he's got a similar experience on a strategy game that he can bring up. But also, Tim likes games that I feel like are pretty simulation heavy. So there's a lot of moving parts, a lot of things in a sandbox, a lot of opportunity for him to boot up a game and just like end up on the perfect coastline or perfect spot or advantage. And who knows, maybe he has a bar story to share.
Yeah, I have some Victoria 3 multiplayer games, and I also have a bar tournament story. I remember it was Alpha Cup 2 of Beyond All Reason tournament, and Alpha Cup number 1 had been won by a previous like champion, a bar player that was widely seen as the best player of all time, and he won against me in the finals, I think 3-0 or 5-0 or something like that the previous year. And so this year was a time of me trying again, but not feeling very confident about it, I remember. And the tournament gets started. We get put on the same side of the brackets, and it goes pretty well for both of us. We win without any losses, I think. I don't think so. And then we meet each other in the semifinals, and we play on small maps, and I beat him 2-0. And it's like an upset. It's like, oh wow, this feels great. But it's with a losers bracket, so there's still a grand final after the regular final. I win the final, the regular final, against like the third best player at the time, and then we meet each other in the grand final again after he beats like every other player like quite easily. I have a lot of time on my hand at the time, so I can watch him play all the other players while I wait for him in the grand final. And then he arrives in the grand final, and it's if he wins that series of games, best of 5, there's a second best of 5 because I beat him in the bracket. So we play best of 5. He crushes me 3-0 on big maps, large maps, like very macro heavy maps. And I feel kind of shitty. I feel kind of defeated, and I'm like, yeah, guys, I don't think we need to do a second series of this, a best of 5, because we just did one and he won pretty easily. So I don't think we have to go again. And then like the host like, oh, but do it for the viewers. They want some more games, so I'll do it. And I'm like, oh well, if it's for the viewers, then all right, I'll play some more. And we play a second round of best of 5. The first map is a very large map. He wins again very easily. But then the second map is again a small map. I'm like, oh, okay. I do something a bit. Some would call it cheesy, but I would say calculated risk. And I win. He wins another one, another small map. And again, like very all-in strategy. Very. I see where my strengths are. I see where his strengths are. I win. So it's 2-2 now on the final grand final series. And I remember it was his turn to pick a map. And he could have picked the largest map there is and won, like, no problem. Like, there's no doubt about it. But I tell him, like, hey, do you want to pick a small map? Like, trying to, like, gauge him, like, come on. And then he picks something he considered a medium map. But I had actually practiced on this map a very special start location, because you can choose your start location. And I had picked like on the edge of a cliff that you can just on the edge pick a weird, almost never used start location, but that makes the distance between your two starting location way smaller and turns it basically into a small map. And then I go for this like super all-in rush and crush him. And I could sense, I think he was quite frustrated by that afterwards. And then I win the finals, and I feel like super happy about it. And that was tons of fun to do.
I was hoping you were gonna tell that story. I watched that happen, and I was hoping.
Oh,
you'd
no
tell that
way.
story. No, April Fools. Haha, me too.
Can't trust anything anymore.
That's my only one. I'm not doing that again. But that is a great story. You tricked him. You used your mental facilities. But, isn't that part of a strategy game too? If you think about it, like,
That's how I saw it.
Yeah, that's like the fun of like competitive strategy. Like in Age of Empires, people who build into that, like all they do is they convert the units you send over there. They just like mass spam the what is it, like the missionaries they have or the priests, and then they just like convert all of your units within seconds. It's ridiculous. And that's like, I didn't realize we were in the presence of a celebrity though. That's how Tim tells us. He doesn't have a trust fund. He just has a bank account that's filled up with bar winnings.
Right.
That's crazy. See, I play strategy multiplayer games, but I don't play them competitively. I mean, like everybody I play with tries to be really nice, and then the annoying friends that we have, we kind of kill them as quickly as possible, so they just have to sit and watch. I mean, it's like we just try to have coexistence and diplomacy, and then we just argue about like the politics of the game the whole time. But I don't know. As far as actual memorable runs, I feel like what's always stood out to me is I may have brought this up very lightly on the podcast before, but like the first time I ever played Stellaris, the events that popped up were memorable to me as somebody who had never experienced Stellaris before because I mean, even at the time, I had not played that many Paradox games, and so I remember, especially with the build that it was a version of Stellaris at the time where everything moved a little bit more slowly. So I remember that being the build early on where like star bases were called like frontier outposts, and
Yeah,
they had to be built in order to expand your borders. You could
I
not just
remember.
like, I mean, you could not just build them like cheaply. They costed influence every month. I mean, it was terrible, but I remember that. I remember how slowly that game moved, how small the empires were, how small like the maps felt back then. Um, and anyways, I just remember like I did a human start. I think I actually played through the tutorial that they use. It's like the human start, and then you have to find the probes. But the memorable part to me is I remember the second planet I had the subterranean event chain where like it starts with
Nice.
earthquakes and I'm like, what's going on? I just settled a new planet, never played this game before. And then after like an hour, you find out that the new planet you settled on has an entire civilization living under the mantle of the planet that you just settled on. And I'm like, what is this game? And then I had a pop up like right then tell me that like my most used military captain that I had just been using to search for these probes, never even seen action before. He was like an alcoholic now, and I'm like, okay, what's going? Like, I gotta pay attention to like this guy's drinking habits, and I have a civilization living under this planet, and then like the next planet I settled on had like the dimensional portal, so I started getting messages
Oh,
from
I love that one.
like the alternate reality version of the planet, and so I'm like, I can't manage all this. That was the first time I played Stellaris, and I had like the perfect run of that. So to me, it is the thing I've been bringing up so far in the episode, like the random sandbox,
Yeah,
like you hit the right spot, and you're like really well off.
I love that. You were just missing the, what is it, the brain worms, and what is one of my other favorite ones is the one where you end up discovering an ancient failed civilization that was another Stellaris player's game, and they found out that they were being played by a player. Do you remember that one? That's a fun one too.
Yeah, I don't know if that one was I don't remember
It might
when
not
they
have been
added
there
that one
yet.
in. Yeah. And this is not like a Stellaris episode, but man, I feel like the stories
No,
for that stuff are ruined now because every time you play the game, you always have that asteroid, the molluscoid asteroid, eat your science ship. It's the most annoying thing in the world. If they
so
could remove
annoying.
anything from the game, they need to remove the molluscoid and the asteroid that eats your science ship or captures it, and you have to go send 1,000 military. It's just so annoying. I feel like it ruins my experience every time.
I'll take a baby space amoeba that grows up and joins your fleet. I'll take that every game. I
Yeah,
love that
yeah.
game.
So regarding like special starts or like random lucky chances, do you guys have any memorable experiences of like loading into a like Dwarf Fortress where it's like, okay, well, my dwarves are
I
spawning
do.
on like a mountain of gold.
I do. Okay, I've got a few, but one that was particularly memorable to me was I got really into advanced generate world generation, trying to make things happen, and I managed to create a world that had the coolest waterfall, right? It had the coolest waterfall. It was huge. And I had, just for fun, I had decided to do a special group of dwarves that were all wrestlers. None of them had any skills except for wrestling, right? And so then I have all these wrestlers, and we start digging. We end up making the waterfall land into our bar, our tavern. So the waterfall lands, and all the dwarves hang out down there. but I hadn't realized that I had been lucky. This is actually lucky. I had been lucky, and a bunch of giant hippos used the river that connected to the waterfall, and all these hippos started trying to roll into my base, right? And so I did what you do as a Dwarf Fortress player. I laid down a bunch of cage traps. We ended up catching endless amounts of these giant hippos, and they became this export for us. We trained them as pets, as whatever you could train them as. I don't remember how far you can train them, but I trained them as much as you can train them. We became world renowned for our hippo training that run, and they ended up being a huge part of our economy. When I broke into the caves, I had a super active cave system, and all these, I think they're called troglodytes, started attacking us. So I threw down a bunch of cage traps, and now I'm catching giant spiders and troglodytes, and I'm selling those off. And then people started attacking me, and I realized I had been so worried about my animal economy, I hadn't made any weapons or anything. But since all my dudes were wrestlers, they would just tackle people and choke them out and kill them. And so I ended up with this fort of animal herding wrestlers, and it was a pretty fun game. That was really memorable for me, and I tried to recreate it a bunch of times and was never able to get that magic again. I was never able to get the huge waterfall. I was never, having a super active caverns is rare. Having hippos that for some reason really want to run into my base but not attack anybody and just gladly run right into traps never happened again. It was a magical run that I eventually, got tired of and quit.
I don't have a terribly long story on this, but I mentioned, at least on the server or on the team chat a while ago, that I hadn't really played a whole lot of Crusader Kings 3, and my friends were giving me an introductory multiplayer session. One of them was really getting into it, but that was like his week of getting into Crusader Kings 3. The other one, very knowledgeable about the game, coaching me through it. So he was really trying to teach my other friend, who was heavily invested, and I, a little uninvested. They were convincing me, like they were like, Jack, you need to choose this duke of whatever country, but like you need to choose this person. So I made my own character, and I found out you could customize the characters in Crusader Kings 3. That's fantastic. So I set my eyes to be as far apart as possible. I made them as large as possible. They said I looked bug-eyed and like an insect. And I became like a duke, right? Like the level above mayors. I think I was some duke somewhere random in Bavaria or something. And I
Nice.
had them wear like Korean attire, so they had like the Korean hat and robes, and then they just were a duke in Bavaria. And all of my stats, I put all of my stats into diplomacy, and then nothing in anything else. So I was like completely unintelligent, incapable of like communicating with people. But my diplomacy was off the charts, and I ran with that. And I struggled to find a wife forever. And I was getting older and older, and they told me that I was going to die, and all my stuff was going to be given away, and then they were just going to have to bury this bug somewhere out in the back. And anyways, I ended up finally finding a wife, and she hated me. She was like, I think I had to pay her to marry me. But little did they realize that the woman that I married was the the crown princess of the United Kingdom, and and so she hated me until I started allowing her to do. I think her trait was that she was like entirely malicious and conniving. Like her whole that she was like a serial killer. And then so I started my diplomatic actions was we started going on like walks and talking about being evil, and then she fell in love with me. She gave birth to like a dozen children. And so I had like a dozen children that were somewhere in the line of reign for the United Kingdom, and the king was just getting older and older, and my friends are like, this is ridiculous. How did this praying mantis like make his way over to the United Kingdom from being a duke in Bavaria? So, and then I had to like declare war on like Hungary or something. They were like not leaving me alone. So
Did your conniving wife murder all of the rivals to your children's throne?
I don't even think I got that far. I think we got far enough where I had the 12 children, and then I was like raising my children. I even like adopted a kid that was in the court that was just there, in my castle, and
Yeah.
I'm like, well, I got to give you a job. So she became my ward until she was capable of like reading and writing, and then I made her like the chief of war or something. I don't know, um, but yeah, that's my probably like one of my more recent Crusader Kings 3 stories.
Awesome.
That's a good one. That's a good one. I used to like to play Crusader Kings and play as Prague, basically. I would just not convert to Christianity, stay pagan. All I would do was pump city growth, like pump city development instead of trying to, like, I'd have kids and stuff like that, but all I was doing was pumping my stuff into city development. And then eventually the brightest, most wonderful city in the world is not Rome. It's not a city in India like it was. It's Prague in the Czech Republic is now the brightest, most wonderful, most advanced city in the world. And I always like doing that, just trying to build it up. That's fun. That's a fun game. There's so much you can do in that game.
Yeah, and very good for a story. I remember we were playing Victoria Tree multiplayer, me and a bunch of friends, and I think there was 5 of us, and we each pick a nation, and the nations end up being the UK, France, Spain, Austria-Hungary, and then I was like, I'll play Belgium, tiny little Belgium.
Yeah.
I just felt like it. I don't know. I was like,
Mhm.
because in Victoria Tree, actually, Belgium is very industrialized. It's like
Yeah, they're good.
in real life. Yeah, in real life, they're actually the second country to have built railroads and so on. So we played a game, and there's like this alliance game going on in the background, and we're playing. And initially, the UK gets very greedy, so everyone bands up together against the UK and like beats them off of the European continent. And that goes on, and I guess I got quite good at industrializing Belgium, and I'm in this trading bloc with France and Spain, and I get closer and closer to actually surpassing France in the trading bloc, and then you can overtake the power block if you surpass. And France didn't like that too much and started seeing me as a threat, even though we were allies before. And at some point, France declares like unallies me, and like, okay, there's a truce now, but I kind of feel that after the truce, France is gonna declare war on me. So I seek protection from the UK. Which was the previous enemy. UK then comes in and helped me when France ultimately declares war on me, I guess, and they were not prepared that the UK would join in on my side. But so we eventually like win the war thanks to the UK, and we're like thinking of like crushing France to make sure that France doesn't, Treaty of Versailles style come back.
Mm-hmm.
But we're kind of lenient and like, okay, we're not gonna punish you too bad, and we hope that France has learned their lesson, but they didn't. And then I tried to do diplomacy with the other players as well, but I guess I miscalculate by a lot. And then eventually, a few years later, France declares war with me together with Spain and Austria-Hungary, and it's like
Oof.
it's Belgium, it's Belgium, tiny Belgium against France, Austria-Hungary, and Spain. And then yeah, I get crushed completely, and then the game is kind of over, and then I'm like grumpy and like, oh, this is bullshit, fucking yar.
The UK left you hanging that second time?
They can be enough to
Oh,
beat all the other powers together. So
yeah.
yeah.
Sad. That's so funny. I don't have any epic, even though I've played a bunch of Victoria 3, it was always, I like to play Haiti. I like to play small countries and build them up, you know?
Yeah, I get that, but with multiplayer, I feel that changes a little bit because
Oh, for
then
sure.
it stays interesting because of the diplomacy between the players and like the
Yeah.
power dynamics.
Yeah, that makes total sense. In single player, if you play as UK, what's the point? You're just gonna steamroll everybody. But in multiplayer, different story. So I'd played Victoria 2 also, and one time in Victoria 2, I was playing Japan, and for some reason, I was very involved in the USA sphere of influence, and the Civil War, the American Civil War happened, and I was Japan, and I had built up my army, I was powerful. I was like, I wonder if I could side with the South and break me off a piece of America. So
Wow, alternate history.
I know, I side with them. And I load up my little ships. Who knows what Japan would have had at that time? And I load up my steam engines, my monitors, I guess is what we would have had. And sure enough, we send all of our armies to California. So while the South is fending off the North, I start taking California and start marching across. And eventually we won, and I think I broke off California and Arizona as part of Japan, and it became like a new
Wow.
Japan area. And then, like, what happens in a single player game? I was like, that was cool. I made it. I guess I'm done. I never even finished it. I was just like, what a cool experience that was. This game's over. We did what we wanted. That's why you play your multiplayer games, Tim, is because in the single player, as soon as you're powerful enough that it doesn't matter, it's not fun.
I've done that exact same move a lot in multiplayer games, but in Hearts of Iron, playing as
Oh,
Japan
nice.
and like invading the US. Yeah.
When they're fighting somebody, you just jump in.
Yeah, and they usually don't see it coming because it's not something you usually do. You have to like forcefully research the ships that can travel so far without a port. So
Yeah.
you bypass Hawaii basically, and then you go straight for California with like long range ships.
Yeah, Victoria 2 wasn't worried about that. They were like, sure, your ships can go across the whole ocean. I've never even played Hearts of Iron.
Yeah, Tim is teaching me that I need strats on these games with predetermined maps and predetermined histories. I need another strats.
I have one Stellaris story with you, Jack. Do you guys remember when The Mandalorian, the TV show, came out? Did you guys watch that show?
A little
Yeah,
bit,
I
yeah.
liked it a lot the first season. And I was like, Mandalorians are cool. These are cool. I'm doing this. I'm doing a Mandalorian civilization in Stellaris. And so I made my civilization exactly like I thought they would, and I adhered to their code, and I never backed down, and I did everything they would, and I just did like a nice little role-playing game. And I had a lot of fun in that game. I don't know if anything especially memorable happened except for all the things that happened in the memorable Stellaris games. But I remember having a lot of fun pretending like I was a Mandalorian civilization. Like my leader was Mandalore, all that. And then every time Mandalore lost because I think I made it wasn't a monarchy. I think I made it an oligarchy, maybe. I don't remember, or maybe a council. But anytime Mandalore lost it, I just figured out how I could get Mandalore back in right away. Because to me, that ruined the game if Mandalore was no longer their leader. And I just played until my Mandalore character died, and then that's when I quit. But that was a fun little role playing experience for me. And a lot of these games, I think, can benefit from that. That's some of the most fun I've had in Dwarf Fortress 2 is coming up with a way to role play my civilization to add to the flavor because I don't do multiplayer, unfortunately. Yet. Al and I are gonna play bar someday.
I think that's a lot of fun when you role play, especially these grand strategy games where you're playing like as a monarch or something like that, and or in Crusader Kings where you have certain your character has certain traits, and you try to role play those traits, like oh, what kind of
Mm-hmm.
decision would they make and stuff like that, and that gets really fun. I think I do that too with RPG games sometimes. I try to role play the RPG character, and it gets a bit more fun because you get to act a little bit like a different version of yourself rather than always playing with the same you. In strategy games, I tend to go for specific kind of strategies, and then I always do those same strategies, and then it gets a little bit repetitive. And then if you have a good excuse and a good framework, like it's tough to be okay. I'm going to do a different strategy if you don't have the framework. But if you're role playing and you're like, oh, what would this kind of person do, and then it's an easy hook, and it can be a lot of fun, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, it's fun to play a lustful idiot in Crusader Kings 3. It makes it so easy. I'm gonna make all the worst decisions. I'm gonna let my id run wild as I do all the wrong things for pleasure. Fun game.
I don't know if there's any particularly memorable stories that come out of this, but I was just going to bring up, because I completely forgot about this, but on a previous episode we did recently, we were talking about like the best, was it just the best turn-based games? And so I brought up Worms, like Worms Armageddon,
Oh, yeah.
Worms WMD.
I remember.
Well, that episode went out, and then Steam did a sale, and then I got a message in my inbox. One of my friends purchased me a copy of Worms WMD because it was like, it was literally like the cost of an actual like cheeseburger here. And so, anyways, the whole group bought each other copies of Worms WMD, and then proceeded to, flock to the levels, and we were playing Worms against each other. And then so we took our few minutes to like customize our teams of Worms and then get back into it like old times. And I mean, yeah, it was a good time. I don't know that I could recommend it. Like, it's a good thing that it's so cheap now, because after like literally 4 matches, I think I was done. I think I'm burned out on Worms, because there's only so many times it's funny whenever nobody remembers what any of the things do, and then like, you're like 2 matches deep, and then your friends don't know what half the stuff in the little weapons list is. Nobody's even figured out the crafting thing yet. And then they're waiting for my maneuver. We've constantly just been dropping bunker busters on each other because we keep like hiding under the map. And then lo and behold, I pull out a sheep on a rope and then start lowering it down on their heads, and they're like, "What is that? What is that thing you have?" But yeah, I mean, it was fun. I figured out they actually, when you buy it on Steam, they give you the Worms WMD editor, and so I just modded in my friends' faces from Discord onto the worms
Oh,
themselves, and I
wow.
named the worms after them. So I was like, all right, go ahead.
Oh, that's so cool.
So yeah, a lot of stuff like that, just constantly like we didn't realize we had like a metagamer with us, or like we hadn't realized we had like a competitive Worms player. Had so many hours that he started putting like steel beams in the sky to block the bombs that the planes can drop based on the wind direction, and we're like, you can just put steel girders in the sky, and then like another turn or two in, he was like, you idiots, you thought that was for the bombs, and then he teleports up to the top of the map on 2 steel girders that nobody can reach now, and we're like, you gotta be kidding me.
That is awesome. I want to make one addition to my Warcraft story. I forgot this part. I used to play with my brother sitting next to me, and he just so happened to be, I think he was doing PvP at the time that the Warglaive dropped. This is really cheeseball, by the way. We would do this thing where we would, anytime something was dropping, we would do the brother chant, where we would just start saying brother, brother over and over again. And as soon as they started to announce it, we started doing it. And I got it. And from now on, me and my brother think that the brother chant is sacred. It works. So you only do it for so many things. Like we don't want to waste it. We don't want to ruin its power, but so far it's batting 1,000. That's an American reference. Sorry about that.
That's actually how I got into strategy games in the first place. I have like a much older brother that would play strategy games, and I would like just sit next to him, watch him play, and just
Perfect.
hang out. Yeah.
Yeah, that's how you do it, right?
Mm.
But yeah, that's pretty much the magic of strategy games. I mean, like I opened up with, everyone who plays strategy games, hopefully you have these stories of your own. If you do have those stories, this is actually where we're going to wrap up for the day. So feel free to take a moment to think of your stories, spend a day on them, and then come visit us in the Critical Moves Discord. Visit us on the Critical Moves forums online. Go to criticalmovespodcast.com, where you'll find links to those. including the YouTube comments if you're watching this on YouTube. We are also on basically every streaming platform that hosts podcasts, if not every one of them. So if you're there, a lot of them have a comment section too. So come on, engage with us. Let us know what your most memorable stories are, what that perfect start was, because we didn't have a story for every occasion. We didn't hit every single standard strategy game moment that's so memorable. So if you have a story like that, come and let us know. But that was us today. Tim, thank you so much for joining me.
Mm-hmm.
And Joe, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your stories as well.
Happy to be here. Happy to be here. That was a fun time.
Thank you for joining us around the campfire and listening to our stories. We'll see you next time, everybody.